Welcome to the final lesson in this module, where we're going to identify why you often stay stuck in disengagement and what to do about it. Let's get started. Okay, so when it comes to engagement, once again, logical to go here. There's wisdom in going here, but it doesn't really feel good. It's not our be-all, end-all. So what I have found is that when we want to go here and we're not, it's usually because we're using the should word again. And we're saying engagement should look like this. So let's list out what we typically say to ourselves. We say engagement should. And the flip side of that is a different version of could, which is can, of course. Engagement can. So very similar to what we just talked about, the first should we usually say is it should be challenging. What we could say is engagement can be centered around what will make me feel safe and successful. So if we go back here to our quadrants, we know that when we're here, we're kind of, like we talked about before, it's almost like we're at war. This is like, just do it. And here is where we're like, you know, we've been a couch potato, and then we're like, I'm just going to fucking run a marathon. It's like suddenly we like, this switch flips, and we're like, we've had enough, I'm going to do it, okay? Now, when we're here, we do feel inspired to challenge ourselves, but it feels more like a stretch, right? It doesn't feel like a war. It feels like empowered to and empowered by. If you haven't already noticed, that's a really good indication that you're in the inspired, is if it's to and by. Inspired to, inspired by. You're inspired to do it, and then when you do it, you're inspired by it. You're empowered to do it, you're empowered by it. Here we typically challenge ourselves to prove something. Here we typically challenge ourselves to improve. Going back to fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Here we feel excited by a challenge. Here we feel like we have to challenge. Does that make sense? So when I say that engagement can be safe and successful, I don't mean that you're never again going to challenge yourself. But if you feel stuck in procrastination and disengagement, probably not the time to just do it to prove something. I mean, our culture would tell you differently. They would say just get off the couch and just do it. But if you want true transformation, sustainable change, if you want to get off of this, then if you're feeling chronically here, probably the time to do something that feels safe, something that you can be successful at. And then once you spend some more time here, you will inevitably be called to something that's going to stretch you. Does that make sense? So it's just giving yourself permission to feel safe and to feel successful, not always feel like you're falling short. Not throw in, I'm not going to name any workout programs, not throw in a really intense workout video when you've been on the couch for a long time. And something I want to bring up here, on the continuum of engagement, I would say that over here near the y-axis is simple and convenient. And as you move out further, I would call that skilled and intensive. So when you are feeling really disengaged, let's take exercise for example. Skilled and intensive, simple and convenient. So as I was saying, when you are feeling disengaged chronically, it might not be the time to decide, well, I'm going to go rock climb. I'm going to learn how to rock climb the real rocks. Do you know what I'm saying? Like something that is intensive. I mean, not just go to yeah, thank you. Outdoor rock climbing, that would be a nice way to say it. Thanks, guys. The real rock. My point is to jump from disengagement to something that's intense and takes skill. This is intense money-wise. It's intense time-wise. It also is a big change for your amygdala. Okay? So usually when you're feeling chronically like this, just kind of ease your way into engagement. Simple and convenient, safe and successful. Make sense? Thoughts on that? I'm getting a few looks. No.
Is the next lesson on coulds going to tell us how to make that happen without feeling like a loser? Because society says, no, that's not good enough.
Well, I think everything we've been talking about plays into that, right? This is all about deciding that your default is different than society's.
Okay.
And that just takes practice. It's just constant, oh, that's society's standard, I have a different standard. Okay. Practice. And the more you practice that, the more your sledding pathways are there. And then one day, someday, you're not questioning it. Okay. You're saying, oh, yep, feeling pretty disengaged. Just gonna do something I feel successful at, feel safe at. I people will tell me, I'm gonna do yoga this year. I went to yoga once, it was so weird, I hated it. But my doctor said I have to do yoga this year, I'm like going to a studio. I'm always like, don't do that. Don't do that. You'll probably go to another class that weirds you out, and then, just do a stretch while you're watching TV. Just start there. You know what I mean? Because we just do that to ourselves. We think we have to go into challenge instead of allowing ourselves just to feel safe as we move forward. So simple and convenient versus skilled and intensive. Not forevermore. You can move towards this, of course, but just when you're feeling chronically here. We also tell ourselves often that engagement should be a well laid out plan. When in reality, engagement can look and feel messy, especially at first. And guess what? I've got some quotes on this. Only those who do nothing at all make no mistakes. But that would be a mistake. Where perfectionism exists, shame is always lurking. In fact, shame is the birthplace of perfectionism. And perfectionism didn't lead to results. It led to peanut butter. I love that one. One more from Brene Brown. Perfectionism never happens in a vacuum. It touches everyone around us. We pass it down to our children. We infect our workplace with impossible expectations, and it's suffocating for our friends and families. Thankfully, compassion also spreads quickly. When we're kind to ourselves, when we create a reservoir of compassion that we can extend to others. Our children learn how to be self-compassionate by watching us, and the people around us feel free to be authentic and connected. And a moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. And of course, I think the conversation of perfectionism really comes back to the conversation of the difference between growth and fixed mindset. If you have this tendency, this urgency to be perfect or to put on a show, it's a desire to prove something, either to yourself or someone else. But when you can more and more adopt growth mindset, practice growth mindset, then there's room for compassion, and then there's room for authenticity. Now, with this, I think we really need to give ourselves permission to have what is called the crappy first drafts of anything. Your health plan, your whatever. If we don't give ourselves permission to have the crappy first drafts or second drafts or fifth drafts, nothing gets done. We don't make progress. Like, take this course, for instance. You don't even want to know how messy it was at the beginning. It's certainly not perfect now, but if you saw it at the beginning, you probably wouldn't have signed up for this weekend. It was very messy. And it had many, many stages. This may be the 10th stage, to be quite frank. So if I didn't allow myself just to engage with it at the messy stage, nothing of value could have come out, you know. I've found that you often have to go through a lot of complexity to get to simplicity. So I wrote a poem a while back that it talks about mess. I was being interviewed by a friend. He had a podcast called Intentionally Wandering. And so prior to the interview, I just kind of sat with myself thinking about what we might talk about. And I wrote this poem, and I thought I'd share it with you around mess. To the one who is curious, be curious. To the one who desires more from life, keep wanting. When life feels messy, own it. Mess is the mark of a maverick. One who thinks beyond, one who creates beyond, and one who becomes beyond that which they've been before. The mess, the swirl of uncertainty, the dust of disappointment, the tornado of ideas, all natural as better becomes. Space to be messy, permission not to know, granted, always. Life signs off every time with an exclamation point and a heart above the eye and a smiley face to seal the deal. I need to wander, you say to life, and life says yes. I need to meander, I need some space. Yes, yes you do, life responds. Never does life withhold permission to explore or be free. And so, freedom becomes a journey of unlocking the bondage in our own hearts and minds. Where to start? Meander a little, wander a lot, daydream, definitely daydream. Do more with less, and in the midst of your current mess, laugh. Go ahead, get the giggles. I got one more story to share about mess, and it comes from the book, The Art of Possibility. And I'll read it to you here. Two prime ministers are sitting in a room discussing affairs of state. Suddenly a man bursts in, apologetically but with fury, shouting and stamping and banging his fists on the desk. The resident prime minister says to him, "Peter, kindly remember rule number 6. Whereupon Peter is instantly restored to complete calm, apologizes, and withdraws. The politicians return to their conversation, only to be interrupted yet again 20 minutes later by a hysterical woman wildly gesturing and flailing her hair. Again, the intruder is greeted with the words, "Marie, please remember rule number 6. Complete calm descends once more, and she too withdraws with a bow and an apology. When the scene is repeated for the 3rd time, the visiting prime minister addresses his colleague. My dear friend, I've seen many things in my life, but never anything as remarkable as this. Would you be willing to share with me the secret of rule number 6? Very simple, replies the resident prime minister. Rule number 6 is don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. Ah, says his visitor, that is a fine rule. After a moment of pondering, he inquires, and what, may I ask, are the other rules? There aren't any. We often say engagement should be tangible. Other people should be able to see it. When engagement can happen in our heads. And we talked about this a little bit before. Now I'm blanking on when it was, but when we were saying that spending time thinking about your perspective around things like exercise or your body or food is in a form of engagement. And Dr. Robert Maurer would say the same thing, the author of One Small Step. You know, he encouraged one of his clients to visualize stuff about broccoli, not actually eat it. And I think that goes back to what we talked about before, like we can't perform beyond our self-image, our self-talk, what we think we are. And so sometimes engagement has to happen in our heads before we allow ourselves to actually take action that other people can see. We say engagement should be centered around a specific tool, routine, or program that works or has worked for me in the past. And it better work for me again. And in reality, engagement can align with whatever works for me at any given time. So obviously, like we've talked about before, there's a ton of great tools out there. There's hundreds, thousands of great programs. There's wonderful routines that you can implement into your life. The problem isn't the tool. The problem is just when you think that you have to align to the tool versus the tool or program aligning to what you need. And as we talked about before, life is a long time. You're going to change. 10 years from now, what you need is going to look very different than today. 40 years from now, 50 years from now. We're talking about a lifelong relationship with exercise. We're talking about lifelong transformation. We're talking about living beautifully. We're not talking about how to get great abs in 6 weeks. You can get great abs in 6 weeks. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we're on the wavelength of true transformation, we need to bring in the fact that we're talking about a lifetime. And a lot happens in a lifetime. You have babies, and you have injuries and you have major life events and you move and you do this, that, and the other thing, and to think that a specific tool or program or even routine that you developed when you were 25 is going to work for you when you're 65, that's just goofy. And I'm not saying you're goofy, I'm just saying culturally it's goofy that we think that health equals this routine that I did, when really routines are meant to support our health. Can you feel the difference in that? So I must align with the program becomes the program must align with me. And along the similar lines, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So if there is a program, if there is a routine, if there is a tool that you start to utilize and you start to feel like a fish climbing a tree, go to a different program, do a different routine, try a different tool. It's not you. Again, you're not the problem. And that program might not be the problem, but there has to be a match with who you are and what you need at any given time. And if there's not that match, find it. There's thousands of tools out there. There's thousands of programs. Why not find one that aligns with you instead of one that's making you feel like you have to align with it, or you're feeling like you have to align with it? Now, along these lines, when you are, with so many things out there to do, one thing I often do, specifically when you're bored, you can do this anytime, but specifically when you're in disengagement, especially with exercise, just because you're feeling bored, I just do a really simple thing. I ask these questions: what, how, where, when, who. So it's funny because little subtle changes with any of these can make a huge difference. And again, this can be with a lot of the big rocks, but let's talk about exercise in particular. So as we talked when we were discussing, I think it was yesterday, about what do you consider exercise, I mentioned there's really 3 components to exercise. And it's cardio, which is just getting your heart rate up. You can literally put your hand on your heart, and if it feels like it's beating faster, you're doing cardio, okay? Then there's strength, and then there's flexibility work. It's really simple, okay? So if you keep those things in mind, you can simplify what you think you need to do, if that makes sense. If you know you're getting some of those things on a consistent basis, you're doing your body good. Now there's thousands of things you can do to get that. So if you're getting bored with yoga, why not try Pilates? If you're getting bored with Pilates, why not try bar? If you're getting bored with strength training, why not try something else? I won't keep giving you examples, you get the point. So when you're bored or when a program isn't working for you, just tweak your what. Yeah, it's true. It's about perspective. And similar to that is tweaking your how. This might be, are you doing yoga with music, or are you doing it without music? Are you doing it outside, or, well, that's going to be where, sorry. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But I think you get the point. These small tweaks make a big difference. For example, also like with where, maybe you decide for cardio you really want to do running, but running on the treadmill is a very different experience than running outside. Doing yoga at home is different than doing it at the gym or at a studio. So you're crafting your experience is the point I'm trying to make. And when you're bored, usually it's just a few tweaks, maybe even just one tweak with one of these that can ignite something. And when is huge too. Is it early morning? Is it right before dinner? I used to think that I loved working out in the morning, but the season of life that I'm in now, I really love like easing into my morning, and I work out before dinner now. Just for now. That might change. I mean, and some days I do like a morning workout, but I used to think that I would always be the person who got a morning workout, and that's just not the season I'm in. I'd be pushing. And of course, Going on a walk by yourself is very different than going on a walk with a friend, and one friend is different than another friend. So realizing that you can craft your experience makes a big difference. Okay, we got 2 more shoulds. We often think engagement should address bad habits. When in reality, engagement can focus on adding in to crowd out. Adding in to crowd out comes from Joshua Rosenthal, the founder of my health coach training. And I just love the concept so much. The premise is pretty simple. Instead of saying, I'm gonna cut out coffee or something that you're having a really hard time just going cold turkey on, you make the goal, I'm gonna add in, an extra bottle of water every day. So you start to add in things that will likely eventually crowd out your bad habits. Make sense? And then finally, we often think engagement should address what I'm doing wrong. So similar to bad habits. Instead of shine a spotlight on what I'm doing right. So this is kind of like you're addressing what you're doing wrong, but you're putting focus on what you're happy to add in. Where in this case, it's similar to what we talked about earlier today about redefining. So when you have a full jar, rocks and pebbles and sand are overflowing, and you have the option in those cases to say, I'm neglecting this rock, I'm neglecting this rock, I'm neglecting this rock. Or you can shine a light on what you're doing, saying, the mess in my house represents the fact that I'm engaging with my family, my relationships, and I'm engaging with play, and I'm engaging with exercise. So we always have that choice. This will keep you keep you feeling like you are moving forward, and because of that, keep you moving forward. This will hold you back, of course. When we're constantly beating ourselves up, we don't feel super motivated to change, let alone inspired to transform. So I want to end with this. It's a powerful quote. I wish I'd known from the beginning that I was born a strong woman. What a difference it would have made. I wish I would have known that I was born a courageous woman. I've spent so much of my life cowering. How many conversations I would have not only started, but finished if I would have known I possessed a warrior's heart. I wish I had known that I'd been born to take on the world. I wouldn't have run from it for so long, but run to it with open arms. So what I want to make known here is that we often think that this is courageous. And what I want you to realize is that this is courageous too. That we often run away from the world, we disengage because we think that courageous and engagement has to look like this. And when we give ourselves permission to have engagement look like this, we embrace the world. We run to it. We realize that we're stronger than we think. So courage similar to engagement can be redefined. Take a breath on all that. And take a sec to jot down top insights.
Okay, loves, let's chat. Let's share. I have remind myself of what we talked about. Oh yes, beauty of procrastination, go slow to go fast, and the shoulds and coulds of engagement.
One thing that I wrote down was just the quote that you had up there about where you think you need more self-discipline, we usually need more self-love. And something that just kind of like stuck out to me was like just the difference between those two words, between discipline and love, and how discipline to me just feels like I should be more self-disciplined, right? And discipline, like just the energy behind that word doesn't seem inviting to me or something that I want to do, you know. And so when you change that to be like, we need more self-love. So instead of being like, oh, I need more self-discipline in that area, it's more I want to retrain myself to be like, I need more self-love in that area. Like I need to be kind to myself so I can be better at that and not do that. So I just like those two words, I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's like I
Just feel the difference.
Yeah, I just want to call it self-love now instead of self-discipline, and then recognize that.
I like it.
Made me happy.
Self-discipline never is exciting, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's just discipline just seems so harsh.
Of course. But, yeah, thanks for sharing. Anything else?
I have. He's centered around what you feel safe and successful with. And I know for work in general, I'm always looking for what's the next thing. Where am I going next? What's the latest new thing? And that can get overwhelming. And so I like the idea of, like, I'm just thinking about one project in particular I'm working on. It's a whole year project. And it's taking a long time to lay the whole thing out. And I'm still not done with it. And I've already launched my first campaign, and I think about how some days I feel really great about it, and other days I feel overwhelmed by it. And what do I do when I'm overwhelmed? I like the idea of taking the baby steps, but also really focusing on using some of the tools that I know I'm successful with, and then adding the little baby steps. So I'm going to do that. That makes me feel pretty good.
I love it. I liked the consistency over intensity aspect of it. I've been kind of finding that lately with accepting that, kind of back to what we were talking about yesterday, like what is exercise? What, and I'm trying to kind of accept to myself it's what feels good is exercise to me lately, and it's really been a lot better. Like, so I mean, it's like a tap class,
Like tapping.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and you're
a skating class,
Like,
like
those are exercise.
I always thought, if I'm gonna bother exercising, it's got to be a really good workout,
Yeah,
But
you have to sweat. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So if I'm having a good time to do it, I'm really gonna get my bang for the buck, and it's not. And it feels better to, if I go and do a really, really short yoga video for 10 minutes, that's what I needed that day, and it's just kind of accepting that has done a lot for me lately.
I love that.
But one other thing, and I don't know exactly why this popped into my head, but when you were talking about, can't really read it, but this part of it, and you were labeling like kind of what's up in this quadrant versus this one, and you said stretch in the top one and then more in the bottom one, and the thing that popped into my mind is something that you say almost every yoga video. When you're holding an uncomfortable pose,
Yeah.
like half
I know
pigeon
what
or
you're talking
something, where you're describing, if it feels this, and this, stay there. If it's pinching or something. I can't remember the exact words you use, though I should, because I've heard them enough. But I know what you're talking about now.
We know what you mean.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But pushing to where it's okay still, but baby steps into whether it's further into the pose or stay where you are if you need to at that moment, kind of thing.
That's a perfect analogy. So it's
Poorly articulated,
burning.
but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Pulling, aching, burning is discomfort. That's going to cause more comfort. So if you're, in a hip opener and you're feeling pulling or aching and burning and it's really uncomfortable and you want to bolt, you can know that, well, it's going to be more comfortable later. But then, no, I'm blanking. What's the pain one? Cramping up.
Sharp.
Pinching.
We know what it is.
I do say it so many times.
Yeah.
We're all so
We all know it.
Pulling, aching, burning, cramping, shooting, grinding. There we go.
Yep.
Cramping, shooting, grinding pain is pain that won't cause, or discomfort that won't be better later. Yeah. That's a really good analogy. I like that a lot. Anything else on disengagement, engagement, procrastination?
I always need the reminder that the engagement doesn't have to be a well laid out plan, that it can be messy, that give myself permission to have a crappy first draft.
Yeah.
Because I want to do it right the first time.
I know.
And make that leap, right? And that was actually interesting too, talking about the amygdala again, how you can't, your brain won't even change that way.
Yeah.
It's like forcing you to have a growth mindset.
It's
no leaps here.
So
You must take
physically,
this one step
our
at a
brains
time.
can't even do that. So why do we put that expectation on ourselves to be?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
So I had one last thing. It was around the alignment piece and expecting what worked 10 or 15 years ago to work today. That was really powerful. And that alignment with I need to align with the tool. It's no, the tool aligns with me. And so then the tools are going to change as I change. That makes a lot more sense.
And that it's okay. You know what I mean? I think so much of our things we think well, I bought that tool or that piece of equipment, or I invested in that class and now I have to do it, or I have to, it's just, you tried it, it didn't work, or it did, and now moving on.
Yeah. Again, I just think they're supposed to support us, not be the be all end all. Good insights. You guys are lovely. With Module 5 complete, I hope you're feeling the importance of redefining engagement and redefining courage. When we practice more functional definitions of these concepts, we are far less likely to stay stuck in disengagement. If you haven't already, take a second to jot down your top insights and takeaways. You may also be interested in checking out the PDFs that correspond with the content from this module. These PDFs contain things like quotes and lists of books and other resources I referenced throughout the last 3 videos. When you're ready, head over to the final module in this course entitled Exercise 180 for Inspired Living, where we'll be focusing on the experience you crave, being in the free and engaged quadrant. I look forward to seeing you over there. Module 6, Lesson 1.